Welcome back, Wanderers. We have Dr. Audra again today, and we have some specifics today, which I'm excited to go over because this is happening a lot at my house as well. Um, Dr. Audra, how are you doing today?
Doing great today. Thanks for asking, Shannon. Happy to be here and continue our conversation. I know I don't like to do this, but I'm going to give a little plug in case people are interested in having a personal conversation. You can reach me by email, online on Facebook, or or through you, and I'd be happy to consult with families on any number of concerns that they have.
Yes, I think this is especially as we get further into the quarantine, I think that many more questions and concerns are starting to come up for people. So I think that you're such a wonderful resource. I appreciate that.
Well, and I
Um,
appreciate you.
so our question, I've had a few parents ask me about sibling rivalry sort of topics. So if a couple parents have a new sibling that they've brought home in the midst of quarantine, and then, just
Having a
all
new baby isn't hard enough.
right, right. And so all my normal advice about reaching out to your village is now gone. So some help there, and then also some help with families who have multiple children who are now we're all together a lot more and the fighting has increased. Any pointers that you could guide us towards in how to traverse this sibling rivalry?
Really great questions and not easy answers. I know are going to try and keep this brief, so I'll give my clip notes, and then we can always have a deeper conversation later, or families that need it can contact me directly.
Perfect.
But really, the sibling conflict, bickering, it's something I'm hearing from almost all of my clients with multiple children. I have 3 kids myself. I know I'm experiencing some increases in sibling conflict. And how about your family? Yes,
Uh,
here
we
there.
are not immune to this. No. Uh,
Right.
yes, definitely. It's so you're saying it's normal.
It's completely normal. And in fact, I would expect it because we have more opportunities for interaction. More opportunities for interaction leads to more opportunities for, a closer relationship as well as those sibling conflicts. And so, from a parenting perspective, I know it can feel very stressful for parents to have kids, at each other's throats or, back and forth all the time. um, and it can be very trying, especially when we already have these other stressors. But it's really important to, as parents, remind ourselves that conflict is healthy and part of normal child development, and can be very important so that kids can build skills for how to navigate social relationships. If you're lucky enough to have multiple children in your family, they're able to continue those social relationships through quarantine. And so, if we think about this from more of an educational perspective, wow, if kids are in school, they have opportunities all day, every day to interact with peers, to agree, to disagree, to navigate those uncomfortable feelings and situations on what do I do when I disagree with a peer. And oftentimes they have teachers and other educators who are supporting these difficult peer relationships. And so I know, personally, and from what I hear from parents, it can be challenging when we feel like kids are arguing and it's a reflection of our own parenting. It can
Yes.
feel very personal. It can, from a parenting perspective, sometimes it can cause parents to go, well, what does this say about my parenting? What does this say about my kids' relationship, not just now, but in the future? What does it mean for my relationship with my own children? And I think that those questions aren't necessarily helpful. I think it's really important to maintain a calm, neutral perspective, as if you were the teacher, as if you were the educator in helping to provide social coaching for kids when needed. I mean, ideally, it's wonderful to let some of these conflicts resolve on their own. And sometimes if we give them enough space, they will. And so they might get a little heated, but then also they learn to resolve them using language, using space apart from one another. But if you're noticing they're getting really too heated, aggressive, either verbally or physically, that's absolutely the time for a parent to step in, and ideally before it gets to that point with some preventions and anticipation, and then providing that social coaching. We do a lot of social coaching at my practice, and we also provide support with therapeutic resources for parents to be able to provide that social coaching throughout the days and weeks that lie ahead.
I think a lot of what you just said is so helpful, especially, well, two things. I wrote down the mantra, conflict is healthy. So I think if we could have that little ticker tape in our head of when, for example, this morning, I had fixed breakfast for the kids. I walked out to set up for our Zoom session today, and I hear them bickering at each other and not being polite. And it is hard to hear, because but realistically, am I to expect them to say, "Oh, thank you, sweet sister, for passing me the syrup"? No, that's not real life, right? Like, this is a maybe too high of an expectation. So I think conflict is healthy, and knowing that that we can be thankful that they have each other to practice this back and forth, because I know, later today they'll play really nicely together for a time.
That's right. Absolutely. And I think it's important to add on to conflict is healthy, as is discussing and resolving the conflict. So in order to have that practice with conflict resolution, we first have to have the conflict. And so it's really a matter of, there's an opportunity for growth and exploration of, how do I handle this emotion that I'm having? How do I handle, being in close quarters with someone that's irritating me, and in a way that is productive and results in growth from all people involved. And those are skills that will serve us very well, not just now, but way beyond quarantine. When they're back out there in the world, they'll have continued to have opportunities with, how do I talk through my feelings? How do I, get out of this frustrating situation? These are all things that, as people, it's part of our human condition to learn how to work through and grapple with. So they'll be, in a prime position to be back out there with their friends and their peers.
Right. And what about for parents who have a new baby, and they're experiencing the normalcy of a toddler who is sort of rebelling against having a new baby at the home, and obviously the baby is not ready for
not on a routine. Right. We all wish that could happen immediately, but it doesn't. And so I think this speaks to parents that have new infants at home, but also with multiple children, even if someone's a parent of an only child, but being pulled in many different directions. Protecting time is key. So last week we talked about routine and how important that is. Protecting time that you set in your routine. So you might have a new infant and not have much routine in your life at all. You might not know what time, the wake up is going to be in the middle of the night, or the morning wake up will be. But you can protect 5 minutes of quality, special one-on-one play with each child. And that can be something that is explicitly stated to your child. Hey, every single day, we're going to have some special mommy-child time or daddy-child time. And when we have this special time, no one else is going to be around, and we are going to do some of the things that we love to do together. Blow bubbles, read a book, build with blocks. Things that can be really child-led and child-focused, those are some of the best activities for that special quality time. And I always say, make it a small dose. Make it 5 minutes a day that you're committing to, because that's more feasible than 20 minutes. And I know it sounds like, well, we're home, we should have 20 minutes, but I don't know about you, but personally, and what I'm hearing from all of my clients is our time is being sucked out like a vacuum.
Yes.
And we have so many more responsibilities that it is very possible. It happens to me almost every day. If I don't put it on my to-do list and protect that time and say, no matter what happens, this is a priority, then the whole day might go by and it might be bedtime and I'll say, oh man, I didn't get to X, Y, or Z. So protecting that time, I think, for special play, naming it to the child, and really having it be child-led. Now, child-led play, child-directed play, that's a whole topic for a whole nother conversation. And I think it's a great conversation to have, because that child-led play can serve dividends for you in your parenting. But for now, I think just creating 5 minutes of special quality one-on-one time a day is great. Oh, and if a child wants it to be longer than 5 minutes, I would totally expect that, because if they're wanting your parenting time and attention, then 5 minutes is going to fly by like that. But I recommend using a timer. A visual timer is great for young kids. And once you post this, I can put a link to one of the visual timers that I really love.
That's great.
And really just saying, hey, we're only going to draw with the chalk for 5 minutes. When the timer goes off, mommy's going to go inside or daddy's going to go inside and make dinner. But for 5 minutes, we're going to play together. And then when the timer goes off, I'm going to go in. But remember, we'll have more special play tomorrow. And the first few times that you end that special play early or on time, at the time that you set, might be difficult. I would expect it to be difficult for the child. They might have, meltdown or have some complaints about it. But if you really stick to what you say you're going to do, meaning if you say it's going to be 5 minutes and when the timer goes off, it's time to end, and then you stick with it every time, then that transition should get easier within several days.
That is so helpful. And I'm really glad you followed that up with that they will ask for more. I think in this time of so much uncertainty, our kids need us to hold those boundaries even tighter, even though it's harder for us in the small view, it's harder, but in the long view, it will be so much better for everybody if we still maintain some limits and boundaries.
100%, Shannon. It's so tempting in those really positive interactions and in those moments to say, oh, well, the timer just went off, but we're having so much fun and I don't need to do dinner yet. Let's just do it for another couple of minutes. But you run a couple of risks there. One of them being that then something happens, a child gets bored or they're uninterested, and then the play is ended on maybe misbehavior or just lack of enthusiasm for that special quality time. So really ending on a positive note is so important. Yes. And then it also teaches, well, what mom or dad is saying, they're not sticking to it. So if they say 5 minutes, but then they really do 10 minutes and the timer, they're not really listening to the timer, then later when you actually do need to listen to the timer, there'll be that question or confusion in their minds, like, well, why do we have to do it now? Because yesterday we didn't have to. And so I really recommend sticking to what it is that you say you're going to do.
Oh. Okay, speaking of stopping on a positive note,
I'm proud of us.
I think that we should end our talk now. Thank you, Dr. Audra, and thank you to all the Wonder Studio clients for your questions. Keep them coming. It's a really helpful guiding point for us to know what people are struggling with. And also it gives us opportunity to reflect on our own parenting, because I certainly am seeing all these same struggles at my house as well. So.
I love connecting with you each week, Shannon. It's a pleasure.
Okay, thank you so much.